Overdrive.
This edition of Pancakes and Politics Overdrive is proudly sponsored by Business Leaders for Michigan, the state's business roundtable, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, education, widely shared prosperity, and a healthy economy.
Good morning, Detroit, and welcome to the 2023 holiday edition of Pancakes and Politics Overdrive. As I think you're aware, our overdrive efforts are to focus on an individual interviewee who's impacting our community and to talk to them about the work they're doing both in and outside of their organizations. I'd first like to thank our sponsors. Our presenting sponsor is the Business Leaders of Michigan. Thank you for your ongoing support. And of course, General Motors for being our broadcast sponsor, which allows us to edit this and distribute it around the country for hundreds of thousands of viewers to see. So thank you to both of our sponsors. This morning, I'm delighted to have a colleague and a dear friend, Chad Newton, who is the CEO of the Wayne County Airport Authority, to join us this morning. Chad, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
And happy holidays. I hope you're going to get a chance to get some downtime with your family over the holidays.
Absolutely. I should have a couple weeks, as long as there's not a lot of snow.
Right. Well, we don't hope for a lot of snow. I could do snow Thanksgiving Eve and Thanksgiving Day, and then I could do snow Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then it could be spring right immediately. I don't need 4 months of winter anymore. I'm getting old.
Yeah, as the airport director, we never want snow. As airport director, selfishly, I do enjoy the snow, but it does raise the tension level at the airport when we get a lot of snow.
What do you personally look forward to most during the holidays?
Spending time with my family. It's we have family traditions that we've been exercising for the last 30 years with our kids. Mm-hmm. We have a Christmas Eve holiday celebration. We go to church, candlelight, and just watching the same movie, eating the same food. We've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah, Home Alone is my kids and I. We watch Home Alone, all of them. I think there's 4 of them, and we watch those throughout the holiday season.
We watch It's a Wonderful Life every single year.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Chad, it's very interesting. There are a few other examples. Locally, there's Warren Evans, who moved from being in law enforcement to a leader of the county. If you look at New York City, the mayor there, Eric Adams, was the police chief and is now the mayor there. Your escalation throughout the county and the airport has had a similar path. Talk about that path and how it's unique from being, ultimately running the whole security apparatus at the airport to then being now the CEO. And what is that experience that you had in law enforcement? How does that contribute to how you execute your job now?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's highly unusual. Of all the large hub airports across the country, I believe I'm the only person to come from the law enforcement background. Not just now, but ever. I don't know of anyone else. It is very unusual. It wasn't an aspiration of mine. My goal, if everything went as planned, as hoped.
Which it never does.
And thankfully it didn't in this case.
Right.
But my goal was to become the chief of police one day. That was my highest aspiration. And, I had an opportunity to go even further beyond that, where I was the vice president of public safety, oversaw police, fire, security, and emergency management. And at that point, I was like, well, I had already done more than what I ever thought. But, the position opened up and the opportunity presented itself. And prior to that, I would say one of the biggest decisions that I ever made was to become an accredited airport executive. And that's an interesting story in and of itself because there's different levels of accreditation. And I had gone to the AAAE, which is American Associations for Airport Executives. They have a CM class, which is a certified member class. Mm-hmm. And it trains you and teaches you the different aspects of every airport department across the United States. I did that as a police officer. Very few police officers do that, but I did it, and it opened my eyes to all the things that I didn't know that
Right.
was going on at Detroit Metro Airport. And then they came in at the end when we graduated. There's a week-long class, and they talked about the next two levels. And the highest level is AAE, which is an accredited airport executive. There's only 500 people in the United States that have this, or less. And I jokingly said to the person I was sitting next to, I had no intention of going through it, but I said to them, I think I'm going to become an AAE. And matter of fact, this person said, you can't do that. And I said, why? And they said, you're just a cop. And
That's all the motivation you needed
yeah,
then.
I was a little bit taken back. I was a little stunned, and I said, "Well, you know what? I'll bet you $50." I finished that, and they're like, "Okay, bet." And sure enough, I went through the process. It was a 2-year process, studying, preparing for it, and thankfully, I passed that right before the vacancy was created, and it was something that. There was only one other person at the airport who had the accreditation, and I was one of 2 people who had it. So I was in a good position at the right time.
That's fantastic. You are, from what I've seen, and from the viewer's perspective, and to be completely transparent, I've had the pleasure, having been appointed by the governor to sit on the airport's board, and so not only do I know Chad personally, but we work together on a regular and ongoing basis. So I see the work that you do, and I see the work that your team puts in, and I see the sort of leader that you are, which I would describe as very in tune and hands-on. But for our viewers, how would you describe your leadership and how you execute the day-to-day business of the airport?
Great question. Well, I'm a big believer in servant leadership. My job is to make sure that we have 11 vice presidents at the airport. My job is to make sure that they have what they need in order to be successful in their job. And hopefully that type of leadership continues throughout the organization, that their job is to make sure the directors and the deputy directors and the managers and the frontline employees, they have everything that they need. Each of them are subject matter experts. So it's a very rare occasion where a vice president will come to me. They know that when they come to me with a problem, they have to come with also a solution and also a recommendation. And when they make their recommendation, unless I have information that they don't have, or I feel very strongly about something, I almost always take their recommendation. Mm-hmm. They're the subject matter experts, and generally, they don't just come by themselves. It's usually 2 or 3 vice presidents that
right.
It touches all of their departments, and so. Servant leadership is what it's about for me. That's my style.
Yeah, I've seen you just in walking through the airport with you. I can just remember, I think the first day going to get my security badge, my clearance badge, and you stop and talk to everybody there, the janitorial people, the security people, their names. And that's, to me, a very important attribute. It's something that I watched my father do very effectively. He was raised that way, and no matter what level of success he reached, he talks to everybody the same way, treats everybody the same way. And I see you doing the same. So I think that, in large part, leads to much of the success of the airport.
Yeah. Well, and I remember that, and I almost felt like, I hope he doesn't think I'm staging this, because that's not who I am. But,
right.
I remember the young lady, she came up and gave me a hug, because that's what she does every day. When her name's Nicole, and she's part of our janitorial staff. She was part of our janitorial staff. She's now joined the WCAA staff, and she's working on our inventory. She has a job now as an inventory specialist, where she can actually has medical. She has a pension. She has, she's able to make a good living. And there's other people throughout the organization where they weren't part of the organization, but they worked, whether it was with the security company or the janitorial services, that you spot people and you see that this person has talent, and they just need an opportunity. So we try to seize on that when we can.
Speaking of the holidays, talk about the escalation in traffic. I mean, everyone sees on the news, around Thanksgiving and now, how the busiest travel days of the year. Anyone who has traveled has seen the escalation in airfare but I think nonetheless, air traffic and air travel rather continues to rise. Talk about an average day in the airport and then an average day during the holidays at the airport.
Sure. An average day at the airport, if you take out the holidays and you take out summer travel, an average day at the airport it is easily handled. There's not so much traffic that we can't keep up with it, that we never become overwhelmed. It's when we get into the holiday seasons, and specifically when the airlines, they bring in all their flights at the same time, that creates a big problem. Having, pre-pandemic, we would have what they call banks, where an arrival bank coming in, we would have 7 of those a day. Well, today we only have 5. So we have more traffic coming in at peak times, and it's difficult. During the holiday season, we have more than twice as many passengers coming through on a daily each day, and it overwhelms us. You have to have a lot more security. You have to have a lot more folks on staff in order to properly manage it. And we are working towards creating a additional cell phone waiting area, because that's really what we need. We need a place where folks can wait, not in front of the terminal. I'll give you a prime example. The Royal Jordanian flight that came in at the Evans terminal. It arrived at 3:30. This is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It arrived at 3:30. Folks were staging at 1:30 for that flight, and the bags weren't unloaded until 5:30. So from 1:30 until 5:30, we had vehicles at the curb, and you just constantly tell them to circulate, go park somewhere else, and it becomes a problem. So we really need to get a handle on these peak times and making sure that the folks have a place to go.
Speaking about how people spend their time is when waiting for flights if they're delayed. For those in the airport, there's a lot of phenomenal concessionaires that are there. How have they fared on average coming out of COVID? Is it back to normal, or most of them doing very well now, or back to how they were?
They're not quite back to where they were, because we're not quite back to where we were. Prior to COVID, we were approaching 37 million passengers. This year, it's likely that we probably will get close to 32 million. We're still, right now, as of today, we're still about 15% behind where we were this time in 2019. So as the airport traffic goes, the concessions generally go. They are doing a little bit better than what we are. So our spend per passenger is going up a little bit, but they're not where they were. And they have had to rely on the ARPA money and CARES Act money and things of that.
Speaking of concessionaires, many of our viewers may be interested in investing or becoming a concessionaire, owning a franchise at the airport. What is the process for one completely unfamiliar with it, for them to at least get information in that regard?
So we do advertising. We do these sessions where we go out and we educate the public and kind of do like speed dating, so to speak, with some of the folks, larger companies that have experience. If you don't have airport experience, you can't get airport experience. So we need to find ways to get people in there. Very specifically, there's folks that their businesses do well in the city, or they do well in their home area, but for that to translate into the airport, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
Getting employees into work, it's a lot more difficult to get employees into work at the airport, and how the airport manages in terms of the flights coming in and the hours of operation. It takes a lot to get used to. So typically what happens is these large companies, we'll call them primes, they do need certain what we call ACDB participation, which stands for Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. And our goal is to make sure that we get as high of a number there as possible, while at the same time making sure that the prime has as much control and make sure that the product that, as a joint venture, they're delivering is what our customers want and need.
So, the airport, and I want to talk about the largesse of the airport, because I don't think people really realize it, but the airport in terms of acres or square miles, number of employees, is bigger than most cities in the state of Michigan.
Right.
Just talk about that. Like, how many acres is the airport? How many square miles? How many employees do you have at the airport?
It's over 3,000 acres. I'll give you two numbers. First, the number that work for the Wayne County Airport Authority, and that's roughly between 650 to 700 employees. But if you look at campus-wide, we
Right.
have about 17,000
Right.
employees at the airport. So, and then when you add on the passengers, it's not uncommon for, any given day for us to have 50, 60,000 people, especially with holiday traffic in the airport on that day.
And so, for instance, if one were a real estate developer, who would they make the call to? Where would they find information about real estate development opportunities that exist at the airport?
We have a real estate department at the airport, and we have a director who takes those calls and determines if what they're recommending. For example, they want to do a ground lease. They do a ground lease. They have a business proposal that they want to bring to the airport. We have a couple of those going on right now. You're familiar with the FedEx facility that's being built on the southeast side of the airport. That's a 50-year development worth. The total project over the 50 years is over $1 billion project.
That's fantastic. So we've talked about concessionaires, we've talked about real estate development, vendors, people that want to do work for the authority, IT, janitorial, security, supplying office supplies, whatever that looks like. What is the route to go about identifying those opportunities?
Well, there's a couple ways about it. I mean, the very first thing that you should do, if you have no idea, you should contact our procurement department and find out where we advertise, because we do advertise on the statewide networks like Mitten, and we can also help with that phone call. We can help get you certified as a SBE, a small business enterprise, and then we will target if there's something that. If there's like 3 or 4 things that your company does, we can target you with the solicitations when we know that we have something going on, so that you don't even have to daily go in and check the computer. We'll let you know when we have a janitorial solicitation coming up, or whatever your specialty is. You can go to our website as well. Our website is going through a redo, because we're finding some of the feedback that we're getting is it's not as user friendly as what we had hoped. So we're doing a redesign of that now, but it's still possible to get the information that you need there as well.
For anyone that comes to the board meetings, it either sits there or they come via Zoom, and you look across the room and you look at your 11 leaders that from time to time have to come before our table to discuss something in their area. It's a very diverse group. And, so it seems that from your leadership perspective, diversity in terms of mindset, geography, culture, background is something that you value. Talk about why just diversity in general is important to you and in the success of the business you run.
Right. Well, I think it's proven that, if you have diverse backgrounds, if you have diverse experiences, you're going to get a better product in the end. We are a reflection of Wayne County.
Absolutely.
And we want to, we want to look like Wayne County. We want to have the experiences so we have people from the east side, we have people from the west side, we have people of color, we have non-people of color, we have men, women. I mean, one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that I've hired, I think, all but 2 of my vice presidents, maybe 3. We have 7 females, 6 males. I think that's a very good breakdown, and I think we have a wide array of experience as well.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So, we've talked a little bit about, Chad, your leadership style, and you mentioned that you had 11 VPs with various responsibilities, that they are diverse. And so I think all of that has contributed to multiple awards being won by you and by the airport. Talk to me about the most recent ones, because we don't have enough time for you to list them all, but there have been some very significant ones over the past several months, and some of them have been repeats.
Sure. So I'll just go back to the beginning of this year. The ACI ASQ award, which is probably in aviation terms, it's the top. Mm-hmm. It's not as well known in people that aren't in the aviation, but when Airport Council International gives you this award, you know that you're doing well. We won top in class for North America between 25 and 40 million passengers. We also won the ATRS, Air Transport Research Society, for the most efficient airport in North America. We've won that for the last 2 years. And most recently, the one that folks really understand is the J.D. Power Award.
Right.
The J.D. Power Award is a great award as well. We're very proud of it. The thing I'm most proud about that is we're competing against all the big airports. If you're a mega airport, which is the largest airport, so we won that, and that's the second time we've won that one in the 5 years that I've been in this position, and we won the ACI ASQ award. We've won that one 3 times. So in 5 years, we won those 2 big awards plus the most efficient airport as well.
You had mentioned, I think you said the Royal Jordanian flight coming into the Evans terminal, which reminds me that, within the last 12 months, we renamed the terminal, the North Terminal, the Warren Cleage Evans Terminal. Why was that important for you and for the airport to do that now?
I think it's a great tribute to the leadership that we have from our county executive. When you look at his record and what he's accomplished, Wayne County was on the brink of bankruptcy when he took over, and if you look at its strong position today, I'm not aware of anything that has ever been named after him in that magnitude. And I think the board made a great selection. It was a board resolution that they unanimously passed that to rename it. It doesn't make sense that, the only reason it was called the North Terminal was because it was on the north side of the campus. My entire career at the airport, why North? We should name it something. Anyway, I'm glad that the board took the initiative and renamed it in his honor. And what a better time to do it while someone's still alive, right? A lot of things happen posthumously where, it happens after someone's already gone. But, for him to have the honor and privilege of having that named after him, I think it was a great move.
Yeah, as one of those people that contributed to that unanimous vote, I thought that it was important. Yes, he's had a phenomenal career, but all too often we find ourselves naming things after people, to your point, once they're no longer with us. So for him to have his children, his grandchildren, his wife, his family there, and he to be there, and all of his friends and supporters, I thought the event in his honor was wonderful, and I think it was a great idea. It was a great idea. Talk about long term. There are short term goals. You want to get the concessionaires back to pre-COVID. You want to get, another 5 million travelers through the airport to get us back to 2019 numbers. But talk to us about your longer term goals for the airport.
Well, number one, my long term goal is to have DTW to be the best airport in the world that you experience. I know we're not going to be the best airport in the world above everyone, because there's some great airports that are out there that are funded by the federal government, and they pour hundreds of millions of dollars into these. I can't compete with that, but I want to be the best airport in the world for the people who travel through DTW. So when you compare us to everywhere that you go, I want on average for us to be the best. One of the ways that we're going to get there is we need to have better service to the airport. I would love for us to have rail connection at the airport. So long term, it would be nice to have connectivity. We have the rail just on the north side of the airport. Getting that connected into the airport would be great. There's also the, we have a lease agreement that started with Northwest that's now under Delta that comes up in 2032. That's another long-term goal, to either renegotiate a longer-term lease or, maybe decide to go out. Like most airports are compensatory and they are able to save money for themselves. Detroit is not that type of airport.
Can you explain that model? Because I think it's important, because some people don't. I mean, you do run a P&L, which you do very efficiently and effectively with your CFO and her staff and your team. But talk about us being a residual airport, because you mentioned some airports getting hundreds of millions of dollars from the government. Explain our business model here.
So it's very simple. There's basically two types of airports. Oh, there's three, and I'll explain all three. You have a compensatory airport, which they set their own budget, and at the end of the year, if there's any money left over, they get to keep that money. If there's a loss at the end of the year, then they have to eat that loss. A residual airport, on the other hand, is it's where the rate setting is based on the airlines, and the airlines take all the risk. So we set our budget, and if we outperform our budget like we generally do every year, we take that money and we give it back to the airlines. Some years it's been as much as $15 million that we have to give back to the airlines. It's not our money, it's their money, and that's the agreement that we have. It's a 30-year lease agreement. So when Northwest Airlines in the early 2000s said that they're going to stay here long term, and they helped build the McNamara Terminal and the new runways, and they invested billions of dollars into Detroit. The agreement was that they would have this methodology, being residual. The third kind is it's a hybrid where part of the airport is residual, the other part is compensatory. We are one of the very few residual airports that are a large hub.
So, as we close, a couple final questions. One, if you had one Christmas wish that you could share with our audience, what would that be?
One Christmas wish. Personal or for the airport?
Either. Both.
Oh, okay.
Both.
Let me give you both. I wish that we were, for the airport, I wish that we were at max capacity. We're nowhere close. Our airport could easily handle 45 million passengers. We're, hovering around 30 million. I would love for us to be busting at the seams and have the need for an additional terminal, maybe an additional runway, because when the airport's doing well, the region's doing well. And 2019, the economic impact that DTW has on Southeast Michigan is $10.2 billion annually. If we could double our size, we could double our economic impact. And as the airport goes, so does Southeast Michigan. For me personally, I would say that having good health in our family. There are members of my family that have serious health issues, and for that not to be an issue, that would be great.
And so you are relatively young, and this job is, I say this because I know how talented you are, is probably not a forever job, because I'm sure you're getting headhunted now, but eventually you may say, hey, I want to look to do something else, whether that's in 10 years, 15 years, whenever that is down the line. As you are making significant decisions now that impact the airport, its employees, the airlines, the families, what would you want your legacy to be?
That's a great question. We just had an opportunity to meet with all of our employees. I had an opportunity to meet with all of our employees one day over 13, 14 hours. And part of my message to them was exactly what you said, is what do you want to be remembered for? Do you want to be remembered as someone who cared for themselves or someone who cared for others? Or do you want to be remembered for someone who took shortcuts, or someone who did things the right way? And I personally want to be remembered for someone who cared for others, put others first, and did a good job managing the tremendous assets that we have at DTW. I don't want to be remembered as someone who is always looking out for themselves. I want to. I think legacy is a very important thing to me personally, and I think about it all the time. So I think just being remembered as a leader who cared for others.
Well, I'd like to thank you for being here today. This was great. Allow us to have a little fun outside of the boardroom.
Right.
And our viewers, no matter what you're celebrating during this time of year, we wish you a very happy and healthy holiday season and a happy new year. And we look forward to seeing everybody for an amazing Pancakes and Politics season starting in March. Merry Christmas.
Presenting partner, Business Leaders for Michigan. Broadcast partner, General Motors. Pancakes and Politics is brought to you by PNC Bank. A Real Times Media Production.